watched a little of the Giants game. They actually played an afternoon game on Monday, which is odd.
Oh, that is odd.
But they were in Chicago.
Ooh. All right. Let's see here. Give me a little, hey, how are you over there?
Testing.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Testing.
All right. Well, this week, ooh, I feel short today.
Versus other days, right?
Yes. All right. Well, welcome. This week on Ducking Reality, I'm joined by my friend Chuck. And Chuck, I met you at one of the bars that I work at, and you have had a very interesting life. So will you, first, welcome.
Okay, my name's Chuck Burgo. I live in Alameda, California. I was nice enough to be asked to be on the podcast today.
Yeah, well, we were talking, and you used to be, why don't you tell us your kind of origin story, and we'll get into what makes me think you're so interesting.
Well, that hopefully this proves to be interesting, but I guess as far as I started out here in good old Alameda, California, USA, and then I went as far as interesting. I guess what they said at the beginning of the Alice in Wonderland is always best to begin at the beginning.
Yes.
So, what I find interesting here is that I went to school right behind us here. When I was
right next door.
at the class right behind us.
Okay.
It just came to mind that I was in the sixth grade. I think I was the first elementary school class.
Oh wow!
And in those days, where we are sitting in this location, it was still a lot of sand. The city hadn't been the fill, or as we called it then, hadn't been actually built up like it is today.
Oh yeah, the island when you grew up was probably so much smaller, right?
Yes.
Was the Navy still here then?
Oh,
Or
definitely.
was
The Navy was still here, and actually, where we are sitting now, used to be water when I was
wow.
was a young kid, and there was a yacht club right here. There was a pier that ran out to the bay. Then they filled it in, and I went to the first elementary school out here on what we called the Phil South Shore, and today was kind of reminiscent of those days, only because the wind would blow very strong, and since it was just developed, there was nothing but sand. An elementary school and an apartment like this one, and then a couple of next doors. But as small kids, or as relatively small kids, elementary school, the sand would just blow across the park, the school play yard in waves.
Oh God, just whipping you with the dust storms.
Kind of in a dust storm, and we would literally have sandwiches because we had to go out and sit on benches. And so that goes back to the beginning, or pretty much the immediate. But as far as what I think you find interesting and things like that is more my entertainment background.
Yeah. So did you go to high school on the island?
I did.
Okay.
I went to Alameda High School.
Nice. And so when you graduated high school, is that when you...
Well, class of 68, go Hornets.
Ooh, go Hornets.
But what was the question?
Did you go to college after high school, or did you go right into performing?
I went to college. I went to Cal State University Long Beach, and out of high school. Graduated from Long Beach State with a degree in radio, was then called radio and television. I had a theater minor.
Oh, nice.
And so I like to say I did my postgraduate work in my secondary education. It was clown college, a little a less traditional than the original college that I went to, but I got a specialized education.
Yeah. What made you decide to go to clown college?
Well, like I said, I thought the simple answer is I thought it would be fun, and go out to an arena and make people laugh and entertain every night. Hey, what's not to laugh? What's not to like about that? You know.
So where did you go to clown college?
I had to go to Venice, Florida.
Oh.
We call it was the home of the newlywed and the nearly dead, and the circus.
Okay.
They had a big arena. So I thought it would be a fun thing. But how I got there is that's the part of the story.
Okay, well, tell us, how did you get there?
Well, first of all, I had to fill out this extensive application. A friend of mine, why don't you try this? And I was looking for something, so I thought, like I said, to be redundant, it was relatively simple thought at the time that it would be fun, and what was not to like about entertaining people all the time. But so I filled out the application, I sent it off to Venice, Florida, and then I heard back. And the circus came to town in Oakland. And, they accepted my application, and they obviously must have thought I had something. It was quite 5 or 6 pages of detailed information. And then I auditioned in Oakland, right here in Oakland, California, at the Coliseum.
Nice.
And then as happens in show business, they either like you and say something polite and send you on your way, or you get a call back. And in this day, I got a call back to come back and another audition. And besides a number of different things, I don't remember exactly, but I do remember that they brought out a showgirl and asked me to dance with the showgirl. They put on some music. And I was dancing with the Oakland Metropolitan Ballet. I was taking class, and we weren't famous ballet stars, but I was taking class. And so when they asked me to put on some music and dance, that didn't strike me as particularly difficult. And,
right. So you were basically a classic trained dancer and a radio performer.
Well, I don't know if I was so much a radio performer, but I was taking class, yes.
Okay.
And getting...
Were you auditioning for other things too before you decided to go to clown college? Like, were you thinking about getting into show business?
Well, that was it. I went in clown college. I had been, at Long Beach, I had been in plays, and I was thinking about... I was working as a television cameraman, kind of freelancing, not doing a lot. But so, yes, the answer was yes, but this came along. And so after a couple auditions, that night they asked me, well, if you were to receive a contract, could you leave town and be gone for an indeterminate amount of time? And to me, I had no idea what was going to happen. But I said, yeah. I had no exactly what idea that was, but I didn't have the wife and 2.5 kids is basically, I think, what they were asking.
Right.
Did you have a commitment that you can't leave and come to Florida? Well, so I fine,
Yeah.
and I was in, and then I got a call, and I'd been accepted, and they told me that I'd gotten an acceptance call in clown college. Could I be there September, or I've forgotten, it was a September date, but, well, can you be in Florida on September 9th?
Right.
Well, yes. And then, so that was kind of the start. That was the beginning of the journey. And one of the things I had to do was tell my family or my friends. And my mother, I told my mother first because my dad had another idea about maybe what I should be doing postgraduate, like at a real job. And
Right. What kind of job did he think you should be doing?
I thought, well, I had a great father, but he thought maybe I should something more traditional, like maybe go to work for a bank or my dad worked for General Motors, as most of the guys in that generation. You work for the same company
Right.
for a long time. And, well, maybe you should go to college and, graduate and make a living. And, well, I told my mom I was going to clown college. I was moving to Florida. And she goes, let me tell your dad.
Yeah, she wanted to be that buffer for you.
Yeah. So, fortunately for me, but I had the date to start clown college. And I had a sister that had lived in northern Florida, but I stopped there. But I took a Greyhound bus because I didn't have a whole lot of, I didn't have a whole lot of money.
Right.
So.
Was clown college expensive?
No, once you got in, but it was kind of like getting into the Juilliard School of Music. They took, the year I went, not tooting my horn, but they get like thousands of applications and they take 50 people.
Oh, wow.
It's like getting into Harvard or
It's really competitive.
MIT, something like that. So that's kind of, I went, got on the bus, stopped at my sister's house, and then I went to the Ringling compound. I remember getting there, and it was night. I took a bus down there. I ended up I think I was sleeping bag and my pack and stuff.
Yeah.
And I slept on the ground outside in the compound. There's a ring, and then I got in and walked into the door.
Right. So your clown college was at the Ringley Brothers complex.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, so you learned from the people that created the circus.
Yes. Yes, and it got started by the old clowns, the traditional clowns were dying off. And Irvin and Kenneth Fell decided that they wanted to have a way of trying to promote maybe the American, the circus, which is a little different than Europeans, but they had 3 wings. And so that's what I got invited to do. And and like the rest of most of us, we weren't exactly sure what we were getting into. Which is interesting because, I had a certain set of skills, but nothing in specific.
Right.
So it's not like I had been doing a whole lot of circus performing beforehand, which was what some of the acts were.
Right.
But as far as clown college goes, and specifically, I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen. As it turns out, that when I got there, the one of the instructors there was the choreographer for the circus, and I recognized her, and then I got assigned a dance partner.
Okay.
So part of my being there was they were putting together a show, and they were looking for people to fill particular spots.
And because you could pull off that dance move in the audition, they knew you could move that body.
That was one of the things that made me realize, well, why am I not any better than some other people? But we came to realize that in Clown Alley that there was 25, at that point there were maybe going to be a number of different people there for a number of different reasons.
Right.
Yeah, and because I was tall and slender and skinny, and they were putting together the 200, what they call 200 years of circus in America.
Okay.
It was 1976, and they were putting together a bicentennial show, and there I ended up, going through.
Yeah. How long did it take you? Like, how long were you in your clown college before your first real performance?
Well, it was kind of like going to I like to say it was like maybe a sports training camp, baseball or football, because we were there for 9 weeks, and we learned everything from just the basics of clowning, putting the clown together, moving. We had makeup classes. We had a sewing class. I learned to sew. Not very good, but sewing enough to
Make your own costume?
with help. And you would go in, and there would be a variety of classes, and then you would go to the seamstress class in the shop, and you'd be sitting there with the sewing machine, and that would be part of it. And then we took juggling and makeup, and after lunch we would have circus history. Maybe somebody would talk, one of the teachers would talk about something that pertained to the circus.
That must have been so, like, just amazingly interesting, because you're learning, like, a culture and a history of...
Yes, and what you learn is, what I learned was, a variety of things. You learned about the history, and I didn't realize till as I've gone on and matured. Ken Burns, who does documentaries he did one on the circus.
Oh, really?
He's done a couple of those and I realized that what I was learning was part of Circus Americana. It was part of the Americans. The genre of an art form, of a particular entertainment, of a time in America when there was not 21st century devices and everything we get from our hand and our tablet and our iPad but the traveling circuses went around and toured people. So that's what I ended up getting.
Yeah.
Knowledge, not only just developing my own skills as a performer, but I got to learn and
firsthand from the people that kind of created that history.
Exactly. And here again, I had gone with the idea that maybe, I'd like to dance and do a few things, but I thought maybe I could get out my best Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly or, Donald O'Connor. But they are all part of entertainment. And sometimes when you look at it, a dancer like that, you realize that there's certain skills that you can kind of cross-reference. But what I learned to appreciate that I was learning from some of these guys that had been clowns professionally in the old school, and some of these I was learning from great teachers and individuals as in the clowning history that I didn't know really had much existence to me.
Oh, wow. Have you watched? So you've watched those documentaries now?
Oh, I watched them, and you look at. Well, we'll go back to clown college in a minute, but since you brought it up at the history, and you look at in the early silent films, and you look at Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. That's all a type of clowning,
right?
If you go back and we don't look at those, but that's a type of clowning.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Joe Rogan he calls himself, like, he'll often refer to himself as like a clown. And one of his last tours was like the sacred clown or something. And he's like, that's what comedians are. We're just a type of clown. And he's like, there's so many different types of clowns, and they've been so important throughout history and moving the culture or explaining things or like poking fun at things. And I was like, I didn't realize that clowns had such a rich history in our culture.
exactly. And you go back to Shakespeare, even, the play in the play's the thing wherein I'll find the conscience of the king. From Hamlet, and the kings would have court jesters, and that's a type of clowning. And that is in fact a type of clowning, and the king, sometimes the jester could make fun or tell a story to the king, acting out when the other people couldn't come,
right?
Because you couldn't do that, and you go back to the Greek or the French. I mean, there were all different types of clowns, and in fact, how we came into mime was because clowns were portraying the king in England in place unfavorably. They were making fun of the king, and the kings didn't think, and some didn't want to be seen as a buffoon. So they told if you say anything wrong or disparage me, I'm going to cut off. If you say anything, I'm going to cut off your head. Then they became silent. So then we went into mime and the Commedia dell'arte in Italy, and the people understood the characters that the clowns were portraying, either in whiteface or in blackface, so there's the whole history of how clowning and traveling circuses evolved. And one of the reasons why they did that was because they traveled from town to town entertaining, but they had to stay ahead of the law.
Oh,
so if you made fun of the guys in charge, maybe they're going to come down and they're going to shut down your show. So
you were always ready to take off.
So you had to be mobile, and the people understood even if they were mime and the clowns didn't actually say anything, but they understood there was a character. So that, going full circle, is one of the things I learned to appreciate in clown college.
Right. Oh, that's really cool.
And yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever I don't know if I've ever thought that much about like the connection of clowns and mimes and performers.
Yeah, which is why and that's something evolved for me. Like you see a movie like It, or they clowns are scary and bad things. Well, to me, that doesn't resonate with me.
Right. Does that make you angry?
Well, sometimes it does. But it makes me realize that it's not the true representation of people seeing what a clown really does.
Right.
And
because clowns are about joy and happiness.
And not only that, but they also they can tell people sad things too. It's not just not about all about joy and happiness. Sometimes you're, like I said earlier, a few moments ago, you're portraying a story to the people, and sometimes it's a sad story,
right?
And but they're storytellers too as well. So it's not just about fun, and that's a good idea, of course, but sometimes there's a little pathos involved.
Well, truth sometimes is easier with laughter.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So
when you were in clown college and you're learning all these things, like your makeup and your costuming, and like, do they help you create one character? Like, do you have one kind of main clown character and then you do other things when you're performing? Or are you always the same clown? It's
evolved here. There's more than one style of clown. I mean, you have, I'd answer your question. At that point, we were given freelance. Pretty much we were to develop our own character, but at the same time, there's some basic styles. You had the Auguste, which is a flesh-colored a type of clown, and that personifies something. Then you have something, a white face, or what's called a joey, the white face, which is where I came in. Or you have the character clowns that can be anyone over, probably Emmett Kelly, the Tramp, is probably something that might resonate with people.
Okay.
The Tramp clown, that's, And
I am not familiar with that one. I'll have to look it up.
You'll have to look it up. So.
So you were a white face clown.
Yeah, and I just kind of developed that, and going with my height and the thing that I was tall and skinny and yeah.
What kind of clown acts did you do? Like, were you a big juggler, or?
I had, I wasn't too big. I did some juggling, but my job, for what I did was, we did it's evolved, and the Ringling Show and the circus has evolved over a period of time. But when we were doing that, you did it like you were in maybe a variety of different numbers. We changed costumes constantly during the show. One of my jobs specifically was, I did the, goes back to the dancing. I was in one of the numbers, which was kind of like I did the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B.
Oh, nice.
And I had an Uncle Sam outfit on and a top hat, and we were on a stage there, and so in part of the arena, that was what I did. Maybe some people had other assignments, but that, and so I had a full Uncle Sam outfit on, and I danced with a lady. She had a swirling red, white, and blue kind of think. I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. Yeah,
nice.
More on the fourth. So anyway, I did that in the spotlight. Then another job I had, it was, we'll go back to that in a minute, but I'm just trying to think. Another performance we did was, because of my height, I worked with the smallest man in the world, Mishu. And there was a birthday, and because it was celebrating the birthday of America.
Okay.
Misha, the smallest man, I would be one of the guys that would be part of the wedding, and we would go in with Liliana, who was also a small little Hungarian woman, and we would go up on a birthday cake, and so here we were in red, white, and blue. So that was another act that I was in. So that was part of it. I was tall and they were really small, and Misha and I, we can get on to stories about that in a minute.
How tall was he? Do you remember?
35 inches.
35.
He could actually walk between my legs.
I was going to say so he's shorter than your legs are long.
Yes. So we made an interesting, amusing couple. It basically comes about up to my waist.
Wow.
How
long did you tour with Ringling Brothers?
A couple years. Just finishing, just put a period, a couple years. And then we did the clown acts. I was the Statue of Liberty in another act. That was in the clown car. Then we did. Yeah.
How do you fit all those clowns in the clown car?
It's a secret. I'd have to kill you if I told you.
Is there lots of clown secrets?
I don't know, but as far yeah, there's a lot of stories. Thank you for inviting me. But when I was one of my other acts, so one of my 8 on the show, I didn't just do one act. The point I'm making, just kind of giving you an overview. So then we had American Patriots staying on theme. We had American Patriot was the theme. So you could have one of the clowns would come out of the clown car. She would be Betsy Ross.
Okay.
Somebody, and have a long knitting needle. We had Davy Crockett. We had George Washington. We had Abraham Lincoln. All these clowns popped out of the clown car. I was the Statue of Liberty. And what I would do is the clown collars would come out into the car would come out in the arena, and I would be standing next to where they drive up. And I had a scepter, I looked like, and I had to wear a bodice, which means I had to have a figure.
Yep.
So I had to be backstage. They would put me on a pedestal, and they would put my garment. I had this rust-looking, grayish kind of rusty-looking garment that would cover me, like the Statue of Liberty. And they would give me my crown and a scepter. Okay. and then I would go out, and I would be in the arena when the clown car came by, and I would hit them. I would hit them with my scepter when Betsy Ross or a GI came out with his helmet on. Well, one day we were doing the show, and they decided they were getting tired of getting mauled by so maybe we were in Pittsburgh, I think. But so they decided that they were going to take down the Statue of Liberty, so they pulled me down on the ground in the arena, and they started pummeling me with their blunderbuss, their props. Their props. They were pummeling me, and I'm going, wait a minute, you can't do this to me. I'm a lady. I'm a Statue of Liberty. You can't be doing that to me. Well, as the story, as continued, that wasn't part of the show. No. that people in the audience didn't know that this was off script.
Right.
Well, so here I'm getting mauled by my constituent clowns. And afterwards, we go back in the alley, and Charlie Bauman, who's the performance director, who is also a big German.
Okay.
And he was talked like this. Okay, you freaking clown, what was that? Blankly blank, and he goes off. And you didn't mess with Charlie because he was also the lion tamer.
Oh.
He was going into a cage with like 8 lions regularly.
That must have been wild to be traveling with all of these different people and sideshow acts and animals and just caravanning to every different city and town.
Yeah, we were in like maybe 35 cities, and how many weeks are there in here? 52, but
52 weeks in a year, yeah.
And we were.
Would you guys drive or take the train?
Well, sometimes we drove, but we lived on a train, and I had a room, a little roomette, which was kind of hard for me because I'm 6'2", and the rooms where you fold down a bed and you have a sink that folds out, and you have little cupboard spaces. So you didn't have your personal wardrobe wasn't extensive because you didn't have a lot of space. We could keep our stuff in Clown Alley, and we had trunks in Clown Alley, so we lived on a train, and we lived. On the wrong side. Well, you lived on the railroad tracks, so it wasn't, you lived in that part of town.
Right. So you guys just kind of performed wherever you pulled up the train, kind of closest to the train tracks?
Or we had a bus that would take us to, right. Okay. But it was an old funky, like, continental, beat up old Continental Trailways bus. We were not like pro athletes.
No.
Yeah, we're not like pro athletes. We don't get flying in fancy car in jets and stay at the Fairmont Hotel.
Right.
And people aren't rushing up to us asking us to sign their autographs and giving us memorabilia, and we were itinerant clowns.
Wow. And so what was like the wildest act that you like? Was there any times where I have so many questions, I guess. Well. Like, what was the wildest act that you were ever a part of?
Oh, things just happened. Like we also, I don't know if wild, but different, like I said, different weird things. It goes back to being mauled by my fellow clowns, but I was going up on this cake that would go up in layers, holding onto these two little people, and they'd be playing all this music. Or sometimes what happens was when things didn't go right. Like we had this number called what was then called the Charivari, where the clowns run out. We have a small little trampoline, and you jump through a hoop. Okay, that had a big paper covering on it, and it said the Ringling Brothers. And so you would jump through the hoop, go over this gymnastic horse.
Okay.
Do a roll and come out on the other side. Well, one of my jobs was to hold the hoop part of the time. While I was been running out, and one of the freight hooks that they would be changing sets, but while we were running out and doing the charivari, using the clown for this type of activity, well, I got hit in the head of my head with this big freight hook.
Oh wow!
So suddenly I'm literally seeing stars in the greatest show on earth. I'm literally seeing stars, and I'm trying to hold the soup, and meanwhile I have a white face, and the blood is dripping down my face, and the guys are looking at me going, what's wrong?
Yeah,
what's wrong there? So. That was an interesting story. We were in Norfolk, Virginia, and they took me down got a cab or something, and we went down to the emergency room, and Friday night in the emergency room in the ER, and all these people are moaning and groaning, and I get this big towel on my face, and because I got this nice crease in my forehead, side of my head. So then you have to see two clowns walk into the ER. sounds like the opening for a joke,
It does.
Yeah, and so we're in the ER in Norfolk, Virginia on a Friday night, and and the doctors walk in, and walks in, and he's kind of double taked,
Yeah.
And the nurse said, "Well, I think you got a couple of clowns in examine room 3," and he walks in and
couple of clowns,
and one is bleeding pretty good right at the moment.
Oh, did you have to get stitches?
I think they just put like maybe a couple of stitches, but a big bandage. I didn't perform for a couple of days, but so things like that.
Where was your favorite place to perform?
Well, it kind of depended. Denver was nice because it was, scenic. Madison Square Garden is New York, as you very well know, is New York,
right?
But then sometimes you wanted to be out of the city because you live in New York. And here again, as a circus performer, our train was down by the East River. Oh. So,
yeah,
we were hoping not to get mugged sometimes going to and from.
Yeah.
Going to and from my room, I was hoping I didn't get mugged tonight if we didn't catch the bus, But so there were different places, and you could go to. It was so freaking hot in Phoenix when we got there, that our makeup was melting, so that wasn't always a. It depends on the building. To us, the amenities were,
Yeah.
So it's hard to pinpoint and say one,
Right.
One.
And then did you go to Europe with Ringling Brothers?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
They had for a short period. They had a circus that they tried one in Japan.
Oh, okay.
It was called the Gold Unit, but that didn't exist very long yet.
No. Do you think the circus is just a very American thing?
No, circuses, and here it goes back to what I learned. It goes back to the beginning of time. There were circuses in Italy, and in Greek times, and then in the European circuses started out of being one ring.
Okay.
And different acts, people would come in and do one. So it's not just an American thing, but there is kind of an American model.
Okay.
And that was P.T. Barnum at the beginning of, in the early 20th century. And so, if one ring is entertaining, truly, why not make 3 rings? We'll have a 3-ring extravaganza. That's a very American type of,
Yeah. You got to make it bigger, bigger, and bigger.
Kind of, Well, if one ring was good, why not have, more lions and tigers and bears?
Did you get to interact with the animals while you were touring with them? Or did you stay far away from them?
Well, some of the clowns actually rode on the elephants during, if they're in the show. That I didn't. My job, like I said, I had
right.
So we were actually told to stay away from them because we were, told that those lions are trained; they're not tame. So you didn't want to go over to the lion cage and start petting the. Because they reach out for you and snag you. Or there was, speaking of interaction, I'm just kind of flashing back on some. But we were in Madison Square Garden, and you're up 7 floors, and before the elephants went on, they would be lined up backstage, and the passageway that go in front of the elephants would be relatively small, and then we had a dressing room on wheels that was next to where these elephants were being staged. Well, one day they got in a fight. Some elephants were swinging at each other, and they hit this trunk that's on wheels, and it came rolling towards me. And here are these 2 elephants swinging their trunks back and forth.
Oh, wow.
And I had a choice. There was a wall behind me and these two elephants kind of in front of me, and they were smashing that thing. And I scooted between them. I just had my tights on or something, my T-shirt. And I was lucky because they demolished where I had been.
Oh, wow.
In this small aisleway. So speaking of interacting with animals, we were told to stay away from them if you're not their handler or working with them. So
right,
weird things could happen.
Was it just elephants and lions, or did you guys have a lot of animals that you traveled with?
We had polar bears.
Oh shit.
We had Ursula Bacher and these are full polar bears. So we had there were polar bears, there were dancing ponies, there were the animal acts, there was the elephants that could have killed me. I wouldn't have been here having this conversation today if
that would have been terrible.
If I had not made the moves that I made when I. Yeah. So dogs. There was a dog act.
Did you guys ever have the little flea acts?
No fleas act. No, but there were plenty of You have
plenty of fleas, just none of them in the circus.
That's right. There were cockroaches on the train.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. That's gross.
Cockroaches didn't hurt you, but every once in a while they would fumigate the train. And we thought that brought out all the cockroaches out, and then they would die, and you'd go back to your room, and there would be maybe a dead cockroach on your. No fleas, but cockroaches.
Yeah. Did you guys have a lot of sideshow acts while you were traveling with them too, or no?
We didn't. When I was there, it was there weren't. They had concessionaires, but not sideshows like
right.
like we knew in the 20s and 30s. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you, like, when you have off time, were you just like hanging out with all the other performers?
Kind of, yeah. We worked either that or we were moving.
Okay.
We didn't have like. It's not like we went out and sat by the pool on our day off. Because we didn't have a pool.
Right.
And B, we were maybe get some, if we were someplace we could stop if we had our own car, we would be traveling. We might be on the train, going to the next location, or if you had a friend who had a car or a van, maybe you could hitch a ride with them and stop someplace, but maybe take a quick look at the Grand Canyon or something and go back into on your way to Phoenix or something. So
sounds like a really hard lifestyle where you're just constantly working and traveling and working and traveling. And
most of the kind of, that was kind of most of what we did. We may, if we were in, say, a longer stay, like in Madison Square Garden, maybe we had some time off. You can go on your day off, go to the city, but you usually had something to do. I mean, you had maybe get your laundry done or just sleep, just like other people on their days off,
Right.
Sometimes, usually they work a 5-day work week. They have a day off. They have to do the laundry, or they have to, maybe I'll just sleep,
Right. Just relax one day.
And our backyard was the railroad yard. So we'd maybe have a barbecue, get some cheap beer, and,
But like, would you, you said Misha was the smallest man in the world.
Yeah.
Would you two just be walking into some store? That's what I'm trying to picture, I guess, is on your off times. Is that, those are the stories that you referred to earlier?
Yeah, sometimes sometimes that would happen. Or, Misha would be my buddy. But I also function well, just to point out that my job with him was also as kind of as a guardian, not officially, but unofficially, because on the circus there are a lot of moving parts, and my job was to pick him up, make sure that he got back to the dressing room. Yeah, and occasionally we would go out and have a and he liked to have a few drinks, and I would have a few drinks. So maybe we'd go find a place, if we could find a place to do that, and I had a couple of dwarf friends, so things like that, maybe like that, but they were generally kind of a mobile, type of thing. One time, and he would be the star, and if we were in New York, I remember we went to the studio, and because he was going to be on what I guess was the equivalent of the Good Morning America Today or something, one of those talk shows. So my job was to be his escort.
Okay.
And we got taken out and bought lunch and taken care of. And then we would, so me should be sitting there, and, I'd be sitting next to him. We all hear the diet. And people would bring us something, I'd help him put them up on the,
Right.
on the chair. So
it's like having a little kid that's a full-grown human.
And we're drinking buddies.
Right.
And of course, people look at you, I mean, it's not like we were exactly undercover,
Right.
I mean, so we would do that, that might be a day off, or
Yeah. When you're 3 feet taller than he is.
yeah, and sometimes it worked for him, like on the train. His train car, not only was he a star, but his train, he fit great in his room.
Yeah.
He had plenty of room. He comes to my room, and I'm like in a tuna can. He's got plenty of room, So and. So we would do different things, or one time we were, I don't know, these stories, not actually a linear interview. But,
that's okay.
But one time we were traveling overland. We were stopped off and going through Oklahoma. We played Oklahoma City, and then we got pulled over by the cops. For something, Well, we had gone to the cafe, and I'm not sure if this had anything, but we had gone to this cafe, Muskogee, Oklahoma, and actually there was a song about Muskogee. We don't wear our hair long and shaggy, like those folks in San Francisco do. I'm just an Okie from Muskogee.
I've never heard it.
You've never heard? Well, it's true. And so we go in to this cafe talking about having down traveling, and I'm with my friend, a dwarf, and another clown, and myself, and they wouldn't they wouldn't serve us. We got the feeling because I had long hair at that point,
Oh.
and we were kind of. I'm just saying we were looking odd. We were looking very strange. We weren't. We didn't have a pickup truck with a gun rack and cowboy hat and boots. So we're driving and we leave the place after we realize we're not going to getting served.
Right.
After we're not going to be served, well, we get pulled over by the highway. Oklahoma, something we didn't think was right, and I'm driving, and they're checking us out. Get out of the. So we're standing there, and we look like Mutt and Jeff. We got a really tall, skinny guy, a dwarf, and then another weird-looking, kind of clown-looking guy. And the guy wants my ID. We're getting shaken down. I give him, and he looks at my driver's license, goes, "California, huh?" And he pushes it back in my check, and I go, "Don't say anything, okay?" I said, "No, that's right. Yes, we're just going through." And when he finds out we're with the circus, that's like, hey, we're just leaving, okay? We don't want any trouble, okay? And then maybe we're going to go to jail or something. So that's about days off,
Right.
know?
Yeah. Was there like a preconceived notion of the type of person you were when you were with the circus? Like, did people treat you differently because you were a circus person?
Yes. Yes. It would be. Besides curiosity, some people had, and still do, like I said, my Oklahoma story, that people from circuses and carnies were not, you had, and you lock up your daughters because these are kind of disparagable kind of guys, and so it went both ways, I mean.
Was that kind of the feeling on the road though, or was it not as degenerative as people would think it was?
Oh yeah. We weren't degenerates. Sometimes we would call it prestige poverty, because like in Chicago at the end of the political machine we would have a performance for the constituents, Mayor Daley or the people that were running, so the aldermen could bring their constituents to the circus. Okay. And so then afterwards we were taken back to the state mansion there or something, and they had a big lavish spread of all this food and all high-end whiskey, and we're scarfing all this stuff down because we're being treated very well. But then we were going to go back to the Stockyard Inns in Chicago. If you've ever been to the Stockyards, off of Halstead Avenue, it's the pits, it's the old cattle yard. So we were getting treated really nicely in one spot, but then we knew where we were going when
Right.
and people were nice sometimes. This guy had this place called Clown Alley. I forget where we were, but it was a bar and kind of a restaurant. He opened it up for us. He was hoping it'd be nice if we go in and schmooze with the customers, which we did, but we were also there because we could eat and drink. We didn't get paid much, so I mean,
Right.
It was kind of like, yeah, we got treated well, but we're gonna have as many beers or prime rib, oh boy, mashed potatoes and gravy, and so yeah, there's kind of a double standard there,
So you traveled around the whole U.S. then with them for a few years.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after you finished with them?
Well, I did parties and promotional events. I worked for an agency. I did birthday parties or I did corporate events. Kind of those type of things. I had gotten come to mind. I went to the unemployment agency when it was in downtown Oakland, and there's the unemployment office there. Was a lot of interesting people there. Anytime you went to the
I'm sure.
kind of down by where Laney College is now. But she asked me what I do, and I told her I was a clown. I just, that's what I'd been doing. Well, she has all this big binder of jobs, Well, there's no job classification for clowns. But then she hired me to do her kid's birthday party.
Oh, nice.
and that person, another mother needed another person. So I went to the unemployment office, but I didn't get directly hired. I was kind of freelancing.
Oh, nice. And so you freelanced for a few years.
Yeah. And then I worked in a hardware store because I had to make supplement my income. And
when you were doing the freelance clown stuff, were you the same clown that you had been in the circus, or did you evolve and adapt that clown to be more of a single?
Yeah, it was kind of adaptation. One time it would depend on what they needed.
Right.
It's it was kind of what they needed. One story that comes back to me though is these ladies were having a up in Piedmont. See if you drive there. These ladies wanted to hire a clown, and they were dressing up in. These are well-to-do women up in Piedmont, and they dressed up in cheerleader outfits, and they had costumes on, and they hired me to be the clown. Well, I had to figure out what I was going to do to hire this. How am I going to entertain these these women? So one of my ideas was I had them. We had this. I got this naked figure of a guy. Okay, but it was pin the tail on the donkey, only with adult themes. Mm. So, and the ladies got to pin the tail on this.
They got to pin the dick on the guy.
Kind of like that, and so you had another one where I had a bottle, and they had to kneel on this chair and reach over and drop the clothespin into the jug. Into the jug. And if you got it in the jug, you got to take a drink. They had white wine. You got to take wine. So, instead they had a kids party where you hand out little trinkets and little prizes. We played, pin the tail on the body or drop the clothespin in the wine jar and do that, and so it kind of depended on. I kind of had to,
That's really fun. It's like adult drinking games.
Adult for these pretty young women, and they were kind of amorous with me after a few drinks, and I'm going, well,
that's where I thought that story might be going. They're in costumes and hiring you.
And it's a force thing, but I mean, your
San
husband may
Francisco.
be coming home in a little bit, I mean, ladies,
maybe that was part of their kink.
Maybe, today maybe I would go back and revisit that, but I was going, wait a minute, you just hired me out. That's not what I do. Okay? I mean, it's kind of.
I'm a professional.
Kind of, it was true. Now I think back about it, I go, maybe I should have gotten a little bit more into the. So this is funny that happened, And,
yeah.
I was working on Market Street, in the San Francisco, and I was doing a store promotion. Well, this guy came up to me with a knife, and he was holding me. Thought it would be fun to put the knife to the clown's head,
Oh my
neck,
goodness.
and so I was trying to. Here's a busy street on a Market Street there, and I forgot what the opening was. Maybe of a Walgreens, it could have been something. But I'm just trying to hope that I don't get some Looney
Holy
Tunes.
shit. Yeah.
So all those things happen. You're out there and on any given day.
So this guy just kind of came up behind you and put a knife to your
Yeah,
throat?
and he thought it was, haha, this is funny, put a knife to the clown's throat. Everybody laughed. It's funny. Let's see what he's going to do,
Oh, God. That's terrible.
So those kind of things, so I had to kind of adapt my my act to what was the client going to pay me for today,
Yeah. How long did you do freelance stuff for?
Off and on for a number of several years, but I had to supplement my income. I worked in a hardware store, and I did a
bunch of odd jobs to
kind of odd jobs.
Yeah.
I was a chauffeur. Clowns, things that began with C's, I was a clerk, sounds like a Frank Sinatra. I've been over and out and up and down, I've been a pulper, a piper, a pulper, a pulp.
Yeah, you have, I guess. Yeah.
So I was the chauffeur, I was a store clerk, I was,
Mm-hmm. You were an NBA dancer?
Oh, that came too. All these things evolves, because there was an audition for the Golden State Warriors back in 2007, I believe. I saw there was an ad in the paper, and it said if you're not afraid to perform in front of, we're looking for male dancers. If you're not afraid to perform in front of an arena full of people, come by Tuesday at 2 p.m. and I thought, well, hey, I can do this,
Yeah.
I mean,
you're like, arenas, I've done that.
Dance in front of people, make a fool of myself in front of people. What's the worst can happen?
Did you ever have stage fright?
Well, yeah. I mean, half of that, yeah, my knees would be shaking a little bit, but especially when we did the Weekend Warriors, because we would audition the number and rehearse it, and then we would go during a timeout. At a timeout at the Warrior game, you had the antithesis of the Warrior girls or the Raiderettes or whatever sports entity they call their female performers, and they were good. They were the good looking stuff,
right?
And we were kind of middleweight.
Oh yeah, so the call for dancers in 2000, you said 2002?
I think it was 2007.
Oh, 2007.
I did that off and on for 3 years. So, I mean...
How old were you at that point?
I was the oldest dancing man in the NBA.
Oh.
Yeah. I was, gosh, I might have been 60 at that point.
So was it like, when you went for that tryout...
But you would be sitting back there and you would be in the chute waiting to go out on the floor, and your knees would be sometimes I always had a little nervousness because you don't know what's going to happen,
Right.
Once I got out there and was doing it, maybe I was, but yeah, so it asked me, did I ever have stage fright? Kind of regularly, if what's going to happen,
Yeah. But never a fear of performing. Always a drive to perform?
I suppose that would be a desire to want to do that, So a drive, yeah, go out and entertain. Was I scared sometimes? Yeah. Was it a lot of work? You didn't, so I was in a movie. I did some bits, bit pieces, So.
What kind of movie were you in? Or what movie were you in?
Well, if I was on a couple of TV shows, I mean, not to trump my own horn, but I did a movie called Alabama's Ghost. We were hippies.
Oh.
We filmed it in Dillon's Beach. where we were being chased by elephants and people. We were supposed to be at a rock concert, and things got out of hand, and some crazy guys started chasing us up the sand dunes, and then it was a B movie. It showed we did show, but
That's awesome.
it was a B movie, in downtown on Market Street, next between the two X-rated movie theaters.
Hey, but you showed.
Well, we showed. I mean, I was a hit in Fresno. We showed it. We showed in Fresno and a couple of TV shows and things like that. So
that's amazing. But when you saw the NBA tryout for the dancer thing, there was no age on it. It just said if you.
Yeah, there was no age, and I had some experience, little dancing, and some other guys. These guys weren't exactly your typical dancers. They were kind of heavyweight. We were all kind of little. I was the skinny guy.
Oh, okay.
I was, but. So when we went out there and they played the music, and it was a novelty item, to be sure. And they said, well, what we're going to do is you can do the first night, okay? And after that, we'll see how it goes. And if it works out, then we'll go from there.
Right.
And so the first time, people laughed. It was gratifying, because we went out there in a timeout. We did our number. One of them we did was MC Hammer. I'm so sexy for your love, so sexy for your love. And we had overalls on. Oh no, that one was the one we were dressed in GQ, and they rolled out this red carpet.
Oh.
And we walked out, and I had an open collar shirt on before it was fashionable, and I had my sports coat draped over my shoulder, and I had a Banaka, little Banaka spray, and we were GQ kind of guys. So that happened, and we did that for 3 seasons, different times out, different themes.
Oh, that's so much fun.
No one wanted a Christmas time. We did like a Nutcracker spoof. No one wanted to be the ballerina.
Oh.
So guess who?
You did, didn't you?
I was the. Hey, I've been a chicken in the circus. I've done a variety of different things, So, hey, give me a tutu. I'll put it on.
Was it a pink tutu?
It was, with lace on it.
Very nice.
And I got a little makeup on. I was a pretty sexy ballerina.
I'm sure you were. We might have to get a picture of that.
Well, speaking of that, it turned up to be a UPI wire service photo. In different places. My friend in New York City called me up and said, the wire in the sport, or somebody had seen this UPI wire service photo, and called me up to say they had seen me, black and white, and one of the guys was lifting me up, and I'm doing like a grand jeté or something. So you never knew where you were going,
Yeah, you never know where you're going to find you, huh, Chuck?
Well, that was true. Speaking of that, and there's a woman that did Summer Saunders. She did an attractive blonde woman who did the top 10 plays of the week.
Okay.
On like ESPN, Sports Center. Well, one time they said the top 10 plays of the week you didn't want to see.
Oh, yes. The not so top 10.
The not so top 10, and we were on. Number 8, Golden State Warriors versus the Utah Jazz, and then we my 15 seconds of fame again. So
My ex-husband is actually on the Not So Top 10, so now you're the second person I've met that's on that. They started a bunch of his friends had started a thing called the Santa Speeder Run in Boston, where they in December went and ran around the streets of Boston in Speedos to raise money for charity. And the second or third year they did it, ESPN came out and did a film of it, and they're all these heavy, fat, drunk guys running around in Speedos, and they're all screaming into the camera, and they're like, yeah, this is not what you want for your charity.
Yeah, so, you never know when these things would show up, When it just got to the point when you show up for an audition, I guess that's the point I'm making is you asked me about auditioning, and
Yeah.
I just showed up, and it took off,
Have you always been kind of a, like, why not give it a chance kind of guy?
I guess probably only because I would say some of that's true. I mean, but I was able to make fun of myself, going back to high school. Some of the guys were jocks or some even female personas, maybe they have to be, that's not me. I'm a model,
Right.
or, I'm a big jock. I can't be doing anything stupid like, getting a pie thrown in their face. I don't want to put myself out on a limb because I've cultivated my look and so yeah, when it came, well,
Yeah, that stuff was never you, huh?
well, it wasn't me because I didn't have the physique and the persona, and so it was easier. I guess what I'm saying, it was easier for me to go out on a limb and be silly than somebody that's got a very defined, look.
Right. Yeah, was it ever, like, were you ever I mean, you said you did get stage fright occasionally, but are you ever nervous putting yourself out there or, like, being the butt of the joke? Or, because there's some people that their ego just can't take being the butt of a joke, where you seem to enjoy being the butt of the joke in some ways.
Well, that's true. I mean, like I liked watching the Marx Brothers, and people like that, and Jerry Lewis and that kind of performance. It goes back to the history and different styles of performing. Jackie Gleason, one of these days, Alice, one of these days, so I wasn't. I guess it was easy for me to make fun of myself or put myself in that position,
Yeah.
Because,
what do you think made it easy for you, though? Do you know? Have you ever thought about that?
That's a good question. I probably thought about it, but I don't know if I had a stated goal. I mean, from elementary school and going on to high school, I was in plays. I was in the theater department at Alameda High School, and that was because I wasn't going to be a football player, and I guess I gravitated towards that because I liked entertainment and the theater. When guys went out to after school sports, they would play basketball, they played football, they played baseball. I wasn't talented enough to do that, but I did do well. I could after school get in plays and
right. You could do the art thing and not the sports thing.
That's right. So that it kind of evolved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that this is something I wanted. Like I said in the beginning,
yeah.
Thought it was fun. Why not go out and entertain people?
What do you do now? Are you completely retired now, or do you still do
just
some?
one more thing?
Yeah.
You can keep that question. But how I got into dance too was because I was recruited. I mean, the girls for the band. I mean, they had. I like to dance, but they had the girls. There were not very many boys went to dance class.
Oh yeah.
And so, the teacher would tell them, we need to find a few good men, okay? And then I got invited into the ballet, and I liked it. Plus, there were pretty girls.
I was just going to say, I'm sure the girls didn't hurt you.
So I got to put my hands on pretty girls, and the other guy, the jocks had their muscles. They were that's what were for them, So
Yeah.
So it just kind of, I guess, what I'm trying to tell, we can go, but that's kind of how it evolved,
Right. Yeah. You followed the ladies.
Hey, and I liked it, yeah. And then they invited me. They wanted me, right? You know, I mean. It didn't mean like after the football game I ended up in the back of the convertibles, because that's where the jocks went.
Yeah, you were walking them home though some nights, I'm sure.
Well, things happen occasionally. And, when the odds were in your favor. That's another thing. I mean. I couldn't make the football lineup, but if I was in the dance class and they were pretty girls, and my opportunities were provided.
It's smart. It's very smart.
Go on, I cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So you've done. It's been a few years since you did the NBA dance thing.
Yes,
and so I know that you volunteer at one of the state park. Is it a state park?
Yeah, no, it's a national park. And how I got into the park business? You asked me what. Well, I got a summer job working in the park just as a kiosk attendant, and then I decided I'd try to get a full-time job as a park ranger or a gate attendant and work in the park system, because I needed one of my temporary job. I needed a job, and then So I ended up going to working for the East Bay Regional Park District. I started out working as a summer job, and then I moved my way up through the system. Finally, became a park ranger too, and later in my life, it's worked out.
Because you still do that job, correct? Or you're retired but volunteering?
I'm retired, and I volunteer over at the Hyde Street Pier in San Francisco at the Visitor Center. And I get to meet people. It kind of works for me personally. And it's part of my history. My family grew up on the waterfront in San Francisco.
Yeah, because your family's been here in the Bay for
generations. Yeah, my great-grandfather was the Danish consul.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up going to work for the Park District, and I realized that I could get benefits. I mean, when you're working freelancing as a clown, there's not a whole lot of or a dancing. Even though I got paid to be with the NBA Warriors, we got.
You weren't getting a Warriors kind of salary.
I know I didn't. I got like minimum wage. We got some costumes. We got a few tickets, but we got. But yeah, so then I went. Answer your question. Then I worked through the Park District, because they had benefits, and I got paid regularly, and
yeah, that's a nice change.
And then now I work at the Hyde Street Pier in San Francisco, welcome to people from all over, literally all over. And you meet people, and you get to help them recreate. And my family, it's kind of like where my family grew up on the pier. So, and then I also do. So that led to a full-time job, and then I just retired. I do some volunteer work, and I meet people and help get them around San Francisco. And before the pandemic, for 9 years, we did Hearst Castle on the Central Coast. Mm-hmm. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with Hearst Castle, but anyway, California State Historic Monument, Hearst Castle. And they have different tours. And then in the evening, they have the evening tour, which is we recreate the 1930s as if you were a guest of Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst.
Wow.
And people don't, if they don't know, but famous people, he used to have famous people down there, Could be the Marx Brothers. It could be Charles Lindbergh, Amelia Earhart, Carol Lombard, Clark Gable. Anyway, these people would come down for a weekend party or longer down at Hearst Castle. And what we get to do is works for me. I get to dress up in period costume, and I get
that's
to
so fun.
and I get to be my alter ego, Raoul Montgomery. I'm a producer.
Oh,
At Cosmopolitan Films.
very nice. Cosmopolitan films. Does that translate to adult films?
No, actually not. But there is still a Cosmopolitan magazine today,
Oh, yes.
and run by the Hearst Corporation, and he had one of his media arms was Cosmopolitan Films. But anyway, so I would do that, and I got to be and we would, as you went around touring, and they would point things out in the different rooms. We would be the faux guests.
Oh, okay.
We're walking around, talking, and the ladies are in beautiful, period costumes, and they still have, and they could have real furs on, and not be, face the political stigma, and so and it's a beautiful property, and we got to wear an ascot and tie and pants and a nice shirt, and a bowler hat, and I got to be the 1930s,
That's really fun.
We got to go in. They have an auditorium where William Randolph Hearst has some theater seating, and we get to. They have a movie that's on the screen, and the guests come from, or the people on the tours come behind, but we get to sit in these seats. I could have been sitting there, with W.C. Fields sat there. Charles Chaplin came to the. So I connected. I could think, well, maybe Charlie Chaplin sat in this seat.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Especially for someone like you that's so connected to all of those people in that history.
So, yeah. So that's another thing that does in relationship to what I did is in my retirement.
But they haven't done that since the pandemic.
You can go back. You can go back, as I understand it. No. And do the day tours.
Okay, but the night tours they haven't restarted.
They haven't restarted. Part of that problem has been logistics. Of course, they had the pandemic, and that you couldn't get people on the bus. But you have to take a bus up to the top of the hill, and the roadway washed out, or it collapsed. So they had to. The state has to make sure nobody sues them, and has to be. So you can still go on the tour. You just can't go on. We don't do the evening tour right now.
I've never been down there, so this is something I definitely have to plan for.
And something I have to plan for, and as people may or may not know right now, Big Sur is washed out. So the Highway 1 it's hard to get to because of
all the rain that we've had.
All the rain we've had, in the highway has been washed out, so it makes it more difficult to get to it.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's on I have a whole list of things to see, not only like Hearst Castle, but things even around here, because I still haven't done a lot of sightseeing. Because when I moved here, everything was closed, and then I've gotten such into a bad habit of not leaving the island.
Well, that can happen, but so that's those kind of things,
Yeah. So is there anything that you've been doing lately to do performing? Do you miss it at all?
I was working yesterday in the city. Well, some of it I prefer, some of it you miss. I mean, but time moves on. I'm not as agile as I.
Yeah, you're not jumping through any hoops nowadays.
I'm not jumping through any hoops and doing some of that stuff. I used to dance better. Time moves on, so you move some. And I don't think the circus life. At my age, I'm finding that I'm not as willing to be as spent my whole life living out of a trunk and moving around, So,
Yeah, that must have been really hard.
and then a few things, and dancing for the Warriors. I'm not the quite the athletic svelte, or so some of those things, you miss, but some of them go on.
Oh, yeah. Have you developed like new hobbies that take the place of that stuff? Or are you just kind of relaxing into the
sunset?
Yeah, well, not really the sunset, but I guess just relaxing into the retirement.
Yeah, I pretty much, I would have to say. I mean, it kind of, people retire and they say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I have found that I've found things to do or not do because I work. Because I worked as a park ranger, I was outside for 20 plus years, and coming out of we called the dark side of the moon, winter, and especially this winter, if you had an outside job, I don't miss not having to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and getting ready to go out to the park going, it's another long, wet, cold day. Yeah. So as far as being retired, now I can go, okay, I think I'll just sit here and have a cup of tea and read the paper. The wind is blowing and the rain is blowing. And so I don't have to get up in the morning and go to work. So,
yeah. And
I get to do podcasts with my delightful host.
Yeah.
Host is here.
I know. And you get to come hang out at the bar with all the other guys.
I get to sit in Pensioner's Corner. Yes.
Our Pensioner's Corner is very impressive. You guys have had a great life and you're a great little group to hang out with during the days, and to hear about your adventures you all go on now. That different guys are going on different hikes sometimes, or just when you guys are all talking about old stories. It's just so much fun and enjoyable, and it's like a nice connection to kind of the world that was.
Yeah, and it's also was here one of the main things we were talking about, entertainment. And I mean, when I started, it didn't have a fun. People said, well, when does it stop? When did you do? Well, it's kind of been a finite. It has not been a finite period of time. It kind of has expanded over the years. When I started with the Ringling, going to clown college, and learning these, meeting these guys, a different part of my history, part of my carried me forward to even to just today. So, and like I said, when I started working, showed up one day with the California Golden State Warriors, showed up at that audition. It turned out to be kind of followed me, along. So when it comes to retirement, it's just kind of, I retired and I wasn't exactly sure what's going to happen, but I found other things to do.
Yeah. Have you, so were you ever a big planner? Because it doesn't sound like you were ever a big planner. It kind of sounds like you're going to follow your gut and follow what interests you and makes you happy.
I think that's probably how I got started. Yes. I just think, well, that sounds like fun to me, So I didn't think about, well, if I do this, I'm not calculating if I go to get an engineering degree, I'm going to go work at a Silicon Valley tech firm, or I'm going to become a dentist, or I'm going to become a doctor. So from that, you're right. I thought, well, that sounded like fun. I mean, I like dancing in the ballet. If I could have done that, full time, those type of things are things I kind of followed my muse.
Yeah. Except
I do have to say that I'm glad that I later on went to join the Park District, because a public service agency, well, not now that I'm retired, I get a pension.
Right. You're glad you found that stability eventually.
It allows me to go to Pensioners Corner and drink beer with my buddies because I planned well enough 20 years or something ago. Well, if I put money away now, and
Right.
if they have a pension, a 401, if they have a pension program, if I need, if I need health care, at least there's.
So you planned for what was important, but the rest of it you kind of let fall into place.
It's correct. When I was younger, yes. And as I matured, I realized, well, I need to,
Yeah.
I can't keep performing for women at parties, even if they want me,
Well, you could have. Maybe if OnlyFans was around back then.
So I planned later on, and I'm glad that I made some things because it allows me to get a pension and health care. And so when I can't do some of the other things now that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, do you have any advice for someone that's looking to maybe become a performer or do kind of live the performer's life like you have?
It's hard. I was in high school. I've been gone to high school classes. Okay. Back to Alameda High School some years ago. And they would ask me to come in and talk to the students or something. Mm-hmm. And that's happened a couple of times, from having been an Alameda High School graduate and maybe the art class or maybe the English class. So, well, what can I do to get to be there? And it's not like ABC,
right?
It's not that you do this, you do that, and bingo, but I do say it's kind of a combination of it's not ABC, but if you work at something, if you have a modicum of talent, I tell everybody in this room has a certain amount of talent. Not every one of you can be a clown or or an entertainer. I need somebody to program my cell phone.
Right.
I need somebody to fix my car. We need dentists. But so I said, you can do several things. It said A, B, C. A, you work at it. B, you develop a talent. And C, maybe you get kind of luck. And you've put yourself into that position. So when you get invited to the dance, whatever that is, you can show up. So that those things, hard work, a certain amount of develop your talent, and B,
make sure you're putting yourself in those places.
Yeah, make sure. And then luck comes along, and a combination of a few things, you show up, and there you go. Right. So.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's great advice.
That's what that's what I told her. And so.
Yeah, I like that advice.
One thing that just flashes in my mind, but we're talking about Pat being here in Alameda and then going on to being something. When I was growing up here in Alameda, they used to have the Friday night fights, the Gillette Friday night fights from Madison Square Garden. Okay. The fell form. And to me, when I was younger, New York, Madison Square Garden, that was the big time. All right.
Yep.
I'm living on an island in Alameda, and my dad would watch the Gillette Friday night fights, and the guy with a little bow tie would get out there, and the big speaker would come down, and between rings they had the attractive girl that would come around with the holding round number 4. Yep. Well. One of the acts that I did in the circus was we practiced this in clown class. We did a clown boxing event in the ring, and I was the referee.
Okay.
And they would blow off. The boxers ended up slapping me. But when we got to Madison Square Garden, because I was the announcer, and there was something a big Playboy or some event. Back when it's still happening, and it was a benefit, and high rollers would come in. Well, we got invited to go in and do our clown gig in the ring.
Oh, wow.
And I got to walk down into the ring, and I'm thinking, guys like Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston, Floyd Patterson, the world heavyweight. And so I'm standing there. I am standing in clown, but that big speaker comes down, and I go, wow.
That's like a full circle moment.
Yeah, and I'm going, and what part I'm going, ladies and gentlemen, and before, and so that was kind of like. Yeah, you ask about moments that happen. So I got to do that, and crawl in the ring with,
Yeah. Was that the moment that you realized like you had made it in?
it just goes to show, I don't know if well, to me personally.
Right, yeah.
But it goes back to talking about class, what I'm trying to tie in. When I go through the class in Alameda High School and these kids are asking me, well, what can I do? How do I get to be there? And I go, well, you do those principles, and then maybe someday you're going to be standing in Madison Square Garden with this big speaker coming down and following your, and your dream. And then they gave us money, because the artificial money. Okay, because in those days you stuck money in the girls' tops and stuff, and and you get that part of the fundraiser. Well, we were given this fake money, and my partner, one of the boxers, he did this blind thing, and he was trying to stick money in the girl's top, but he was putting his hands on her top and pretending like he was blind, and people thought that was very funny. I wish I had thought of that idea. We got these fake dollars to stick in their tops, but I go, Bob, that was a cute idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were different times.
those were different. Yes, those were different times. But
yeah.
Sometimes as a clown, you got away with things too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean,
that might be where some people think clowns get creepy.
Yeah. Well, actually, I never tried to be too creepy. I always tried to be a respectful clown.
Well, you were a professional.
Yeah, we were. So. You never know where your face was going to show up on something, and
yeah, that must have been something to be, and especially because that's like pre-internet days, so there's no way to like track where your picture might end up.
Yeah, there was yeah, it was a little harder, things have changed considerably, and so hopefully, they get paid better. you get to track some. There's a plus and minus there.
Yeah. Do you ever go see the circus when it comes back around?
I did. I went to, and then, although it does, the Ringling Brothers is no longer in business.
They ended
a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
2017. Anyway, after 146 years, they went out of business. But we all got invited back to a reunion.
Oh, wow.
By the circus to Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Did you go to it?
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
What we did was why this is going to make sense in a minute is because we went back there, a number of us, a bunch of us, and Baraboo, Wisconsin is like the home of the Ringling Brothers.
Okay.
And it's like a circus town. Like some people, if you go to Canton, Ohio, that's the Football Hall of Fame. If you go to upstate New York, to Dublin, that's the
Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Cooperstown.
Oh yeah, and baseball.
Their whole shtick has been baseball. So we went down there, and why this is going to make sense? I'm being redundant here, but So we had a circus calliope and a parade down Main Street. It's a small Midwestern town about parallel in the middle of Wisconsin with on same latitude as Green Bay, Wisconsin, only in the middle of the state. And that's where the Ringling Brothers started their original circus. But so we had a parade down Main Street.
Oh, fun.
And that, it's on YouTube. And
were you in full clown makeup?
Yeah, we were in clown makeup, and we did the whole, and there was some remaining showgirls, and they had the calliope, and they had some elephants and music, and they have it's a town like if you what's the movie Back to the Future, where it's a small town, and they have the town hall with the clock on it and stuff, and that's kind of it's a small Midwest community.
Yeah.
So I got to go back and relive that, and
because there's not many people that can say they were part of the Ringley's family. Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a good amount of people, but it's not like an astronomical amount of people that can be.
And they're fading away. Mm. And like I said, I didn't appreciate it as much until like I saw being at the beginning of our conversation with Ken Burns and doing one of his documentaries on a part of the American circus. And I realized that's you're part of that. A little bit of that Americana is something that no longer exists, that you're a part of that history. You're part of that history. I mean, Cirque du Soleil is contemporary. Right. I mean, but it's a different type of circus. Yeah. I mean, the way those people move is unbelievable to me. We were in Orlando, Florida. We had we had a reunion there. Orlando, which is where, the circus also, winter quarters were. And a couple years, 3 years, we had a clown college reunion, and we got invited to one of the Cirque du Soleil performances, but they're in a fixed arena now, right, in Orlando, and we got to go backstage and see some of those guys, and they were very gracious and invited us back. So you got to see the next generation of the circus. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of sad that that's like a piece of history that's gone away, that it's not really a thing that happens anymore. Yeah, there's some small circuses, but nothing like Ringling Brothers was. Yeah, or big, and even with Cirque du Soleil is going to come here in March, but they're at a big arena. They're great performers, but it's a different type of. It's a very different type of show. It's a different type of show, and even for them, finances are an issue, Yeah, which is incredible to me, because why people wouldn't want to go to those shows? They're amazing, and what they do is amazing. Yeah. So, but there's so many more different forms of entertainment now that people get involved in. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people don't sit for as long as for the same entertainment, because everything is now so fast, and reels and 10-second clips and YouTube and all of that. Yeah. So, but. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there for today, but thank you so much, Chuck, for sharing with us what it was like to be in the circus. Oh, well, thank you for having me and finding an interest in my own small part of the universe. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for entertaining all those people for all those years. Well, the pleasure was mine. All right. Thank you all for joining us, and make sure you find some of your own joy today. Joy. Fantastic.